Ross, your book Not Zero was published 2 years ago now in 2023. It feels like a lot has changed in those intervening years. I mean, you were mounting a very important rallying cry against this lunatic policy, but it feels as if a lot more people are coming around. There's a lot more skepticism. We, of course, have a skeptic in the White House in the form of Donald Trump. Maybe things are a bit bleaker in the UK with Ed Miliband being a full-on zealot. But what's your reading on the current temperature? Where do you think we are with greenism and net zero?
Yeah, well, the thing has changed. Attitudes have changed enormously. I mean, when I started writing that book, I started looking for a publisher, and it's sort of treated as if it was some sort of way out opinion which could not possibly be shared by any decent human being. It was sort of, net zero was accepted. It was the consensus, and any right-thinking person would, of course, agree with it, even though the government then had no plan of how it was going to eliminate carbon emissions by 2050 without destroying the economy. It still has no plan. But what's changed is that the implications of this net zero target are becoming more clear by the day. And, we're seeing industries close. Jim Ratcliffe, warning that the chemical industry is doomed. We've had another steelworks close this week. And that was the goody-goody steelworks, the one that's got an electric arc furnace, the one that's supposed to be making the green steel, but it's still been undermined by extremely high energy prices in this country, which can in themselves be traced back to net zero rules. People are now seeing, now we've got sort of electric cars. We're getting close to the date where petrol and diesel cars are being banned. People are realizing the implications of being forced to buy electric. We're realizing the sheer cost of heat pumps and how, they're not always effective replacement for gas and oil boilers. And the closer the implications come to people's homes and people's lives, then the less support net zero is going to have. And for years, governments have been relying on these sort of polls where people have just asked simply, do you agree with net zero? And people tend to say yes, because it sounds a sort of generally good thing. But then when you present people with the real implications, do you want to give up your foreign holidays for net zero? Do you want to give up your petrol diesel car? Do you want to go without electricity when the wind's not blowing? People give very, very different answers. And I don't think that Ed Miliband, the government, has cottoned on to how sharply those opinions, public opinion, changes when the consequences of net zero start to hit home.
And Ed Miliband still maintains that actually, perhaps maybe he'd say in the longer term, but that actually, electricity will get cheaper, life will get better. I mean, we all know that to be absurd, but do you think the penny will ever drop for a zealot like himself?
Well, I mean, he has made this promise, didn't he? It wasn't quite in the manifesto, but it was a promise made during the election campaign that he was going to reduce our electricity bills by £300 a year. If we're not all paying £300 less in our electricity bills by the end of this parliament, I mean, we're going to hold him to that, aren't we? Of course we are. So, and what plan he has to get there, I have to say, have no idea, because at the moment we have the highest electricity and gas prices in the world, and that can be traced directly to net zero policy. He said, it's because, Ed Miliband always says, it's because we're reliant on gas. And then you point to the US, you say, look, the US has a higher proportion of its electricity generated by gas than we do in Britain, so why are its electricity prices about sort of 1/4 of what they are here? And of course, it's just total nonsense. So what Miliband is saying, I mean, the reason gas power is so expensive in this country is the way we're using it, because we're using gas as a short-term backup when the wind's not blowing, the sun's not shining. And of course, it is very much more expensive to use a gas plant per megawatt hour. It's very much more expensive to use a gas plant for a short burst of power than it is to use it continuously, because the plant still has to be paid for, it still has to be maintained. You have to start it up from cold if you're going to use it for a short burst of power. And then we have this absurd marginal cost pricing model for our electricity market, which basically means that at any half-hour period, we all have to pay through the nose for what's the most expensive form of energy at that time. It all adds up to this cocktail giving us most expensive energy prices in the world, and that's sooner or later that is going to dawn on Ed Miliband. Why, given we seem to embrace wind and solar power more than any other country in Europe, why are our electricity prices so high?
I was just wondering, Ross, is one cause for optimism the fact that the politics around this has really changed? Because obviously we have reform in the ascendancy, in the opinion polls at least. They've been pretty kind of green sceptical for a long time, certainly in Farage's previous party iterations. But even the Conservative Party, which is worth saying, signed the net zero target into law. Even up until about 5 minutes ago, was saying net zero is great, we just have to do it slightly slower, essentially, was the line that was coming out. But even now, you're hearing much more sceptical noises from Kemi Badenoch's Tory party, regardless of, they might still be a bit of a non-factor in the next election. But is the kind of the political debate around this really changing now that the centre-right has understood that this is an issue that could actually put them on the side of voters, given how much it's been shredding our living standards, these targets?
Yeah, the consensus has gone, and we've got two of the biggest parties now counting for, about 45% of the vote in opinion polls now, which are opposing net zero, and that has very much changed the political debate. It's next election there will be a genuine choice. Voters will be able to say we want to carry on with this, project to reduce our carbon emissions to zero, whatever cost it costs us. And then on the other side, well, no, we're not going to destroy our economy and make life unaffordable for millions of people by committing to this open-ended target. Though I think we will have a genuine choice in the next election, and it will be very interesting to see how the debate changes between now and then.